Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So back today with another contest video. As you know, I've done a couple of contest videos recently, but interchanged them with collection updates or just collection videos. So as promised, the contest entry is the one I'm doing today, and that is for Kim from This Is Music. So most of you probably know Kim. He's from Denmark and he's been running his channel This Is Music for only a couple of years, I think, but he's already reached 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, really excellent channel. He's very knowledgeable, has a very eclectic taste in music, not just metal music, but all kinds of music. And he does a lot of blind buy videos and a lot of interesting and creative kinds of videos. So it's always an entertaining channel to watch. And in addition to that, I may have mentioned this before, but he's got a very sort of dry, deadpan sense of humor, but it cracks me up. And that includes when he's done contest entries for me. And he's always been very supportive of this channel, or just, some things he says, it's in that very kind of dry way, but it always makes me laugh. But yes, definitely check out his channel if you haven't. And in order to celebrate this milestone of reaching 1,000 subscribers, he's put on this little contest where he's asked us for our hot takes on certain topics. So just in case you're not familiar with what that means, hot takes meaning unpopular opinions about music. So, as he explained, sometimes there are certain opinions that are almost treated as law in metal music, like you have to like certain bands or you have to dislike certain bands or songs. But at the end of the day, we're all individuals, and it would be boring if we were all the same. So everybody's different, everyone's entitled to their opinion about music. So that's the funny thing. I'll call this video, yes, it's called Hot Takes, but I know it's still going to upset some people. But let me just reiterate this. We're all entitled to our opinions about music, and if your opinion is different to mine, that's fine. I'm not asking you to trust in my opinion or say it's the law. This is simply my opinion. But I remember when I did a recent video, a response video to George G's Rim of Rock about worst Kiss songs, I really stirred up a hornet's nest there. I got some abusive and bitchy comments from some people, like saying, so the topic of that was 10 worst Kiss songs, like worst as in subjectively my 10 least favorite. And some people didn't like my choices, and they informed me directly that they immediately stopped watching the video as soon as I mentioned a song that they liked. I mean, fucking hell. Okay, you like the song, that's fine. I didn't specifically say in that video, but I thought it went without saying that yes, this is just my opinion, okay? So don't take it too personally, all right? So on that topic, with my hot takes today, and there are some sizzling hot ones, yeah, you don't have to take it personally. You don't have to write abusive comments. You don't have to unsubscribe. Just we'll agree to disagree, okay? But yeah, so these are 6 unpopular opinions or hot takes that I have about music. And let's see people's reactions. I hope they're not too harsh. But remember, as I said, if you don't like the channel, you don't have to watch, but you don't have to specifically tell me, I stopped watching the video. Okay, all right, so we'll get started. So my first hot take, straight into them. Ooh. So the first one is that I prefer 80s Kiss over 70s Kiss. Wow, yeah. Okay, so yeah, everyone knows that Kiss are my favorite rock band, definitely, and their classic period is definitely considered to be the 70s, when the band formed with the original 4 members where they were all wearing the kabuki style makeup. So Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, Peter Criss, and I love the 70s era too. And I mean no disrespect to original members Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, because I love them as musicians and as personalities and characters in the band. But speaking objectively and honestly, when I listen to the music, I much prefer Kiss's 80s material. So in the 80s, they still had Gene and Paul, but they went through various other musicians. But I think I've mentioned this, I grew up as a preteen in the 80s, so I think I just have an affinity with a more 80s sound than 70s sound. And like when you listen to 70s Kiss music, it's definitely more like loud rock and roll with, like a lot of Marshall amps stacked. And so it was considered very extreme for its time. But the 80s material sounds a lot more heavy metal. But even though, for lack of a better term, because they weren't really heavy metal, they were kind of hair metal, but it had more sort of an 80s metallic sound. And you may have heard me mention this before, but when I was first getting into the band, when I listened to a greatest hits, the songs from these 2 albums, Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up, grabbed me a lot more than the 70s ones. But, that's just me. I still love Kiss's entire discography. And yes, the 70s stuff is awesome. You've probably seen me doing the 70s ranking video and the 80s ranking. So obviously I like them. But if you were to ask me which do I prefer, definitely their 80s material. Because I just think, to me, the music sounds better. It's more my style, in accordance with the style that I like anyway. So I'm not saying objectively that it's better. I'm just saying I prefer 80s Kiss to 70s Kiss. So that's my first hot take. And I know I'll probably get some backlash like that, like people saying, how dare you say that? Well, I just did, so there you go. And, you know, it's important to be honest about your opinions, I think. Okay, so second hot take. This could be the hottest take of the day. I know typewriter's gonna start clicking, people are gonna laugh at me. Maybe, I don't know. But talking about this album, 6 Feet Under's Nightmares of the Decomposed, my hot take is that I like this album. Shock horror! Because most people, this is the album that people love to hate. They love to shit on this album, absolutely talk shit about it, and, you know, just offer completely unconstructive criticism regarding it. I understand some people may genuinely hate it, and I've heard a lot of people say that they do, but for me, I just really enjoy it. Like, ever since the first time I heard it, I thought, you know, yes, it's true that Chris's voice is not what it used to be, but then you think about most singers, you know, like, for example, like Paul Stanley or even Bruce Dickinson to a degree, like, do they sound like they did when they first started? No, and so Chris's voice isn't what it used to be, but having said that, it still has his unique character, and that's the funny thing, he's probably one of the most influential death metal vocalists who's inspired so many vocalists, and so many people can sort of generically rip him off, but Chris is the only one who sounds like himself. Like, it's just something unique about his voice. It's evolved, and he's even said in you know, podcasts and interviews that he tries to make his voice a little bit different on each album as well. But yeah, so it's not in the same league as Tomb of the Mutilated or something, but I still really like his vocals. And first and foremost, the music on this album is just really catchy. Like, I just find so many songs are really catchy and they have Chris's vocal charm on them. Like, some of my favorites on this album would be Amputator, Zodiac is a very catchy song. I also really like Drink Blood, Get High, Labyrinth of Insanity, but like the whole album is really good. There's no songs I actually dislike on this. So it almost seems like it's an established unwritten law that people have to hate 6 Feet Under or hate Chris Barnes, and I really don't understand all the hate because they are a good band. Like, maybe not completely consistent. There are some albums that are not as good as others, but there are some really good albums, including this one, and I like this one. In addition to that, I have to say that Chris Barnes strikes me as a pretty cool guy. When I watched the recent podcast, which was fascinating, with Gaza, the guy from Silence, I can't say the full name of the band or the video will be taken down, but that was like a 2.5-hour podcast, and he just seemed like a very laid-back, genuine, easygoing guy. This is Chris I'm talking about. So I thought as a person, he seems pretty cool as well. And then even some fans said in response to that, oh, it's all acting. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, they can't give him a break. I don't understand why, but yeah, I just don't understand the hate for this album or this band or for Chris. I think all three are pretty cool, actually. So there you go, that's my second hot take. All right, so hot take number 3. So related to Chris Barnes, slightly, but now we're going over to his former band, Cannibal Corpse. This is a massive hot take that's going to spark some controversy, no doubt. This album, The Bleeding by Cannibal Corpse, don't worry, I like it, but my hot take is that it's not in my top 5 Cannibal Corpse albums. Again, shock horror. Like, I've heard so many people say over the years, and especially on YouTube, that this is their absolute favorite Cannibal Corpse album. I've even heard members of the band say that, and I think even Chris really likes it as well. Look, it's a great album and I really do like it. This has great nostalgic quality for me because I discovered it when I was in high school and everything, but I just happen to like other albums more. And so this album is by no means bad in any respects, but there are 3 small criticisms I have of it. Like, I know the band say they like the production on this, and Chris said that too. Like, I like the production of the bass, but I think this album sounds very thin in terms of the production, and the drum sounds weak, not because of Paul Mazurkiewicz's playing, but just the way the drums are produced. Like, the snare is really weak and tinny. There's just no meatiness to the drumming. And also, like, the way Chris's vocals are produced on this album, they sound a bit dry to me, you know, in comparison to the previous 3, which are absolutely awesome. And yeah, so it's like a thin sounding album with dry vocals. And then there are just some songs which I don't get into and I find a little bit boring, like Return to Flesh, but overall I do like the album, but it's just not in my top 5. As I said, most people say this is their number 1 Cannibal Corpse album. What do you think about it? Now that I've said this, it's not in my top 5. Do I have a top 5 Cannibal Corpse albums? Well, I haven't officially done a ranking because I don't own all albums, but generally, in no particular order, but I would say the following 5 are in my top 5. So, first 3 albums, Eaten Back to Life, Butchered at Birth, and Tomb of the Mutilated, definitely. and then probably also Torture and The Wretched Spawn. So those 5 albums, but I'd have to think about how I would arrange them, but they would be my top 5. So yeah, this is a good album, but it's just not in my top 5 and certainly not my favorite. Yeah, Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding. All right, so that's 3 hot takes done and dusted. Now we'll get into the next one. This one's going to shock some people as well. Metallica Reload. My hot take is I like this album. Shock horror. Most people absolutely despise this album. I've heard a lot of people say, you know, generally speaking, most people say Saint Anger's the worst album, and I agree with that. In my opinion, Saint Anger is definitely the worst. But then I've heard a lot of people say that this is the worst. I really just don't see it. I think this is a fantastic album. The other thing is people always say, oh, Load was good, but Reload, not really. For me, I think Load is boring. Like, Load had 3 or 4 good songs, the rest boring to me. But with this, I pretty much like every song, or certainly don't dislike any. And I think it's partly due to nostalgic quality, like in the late 90s when I bought this album and I was listening to it a lot. But yeah, I just really like it. Like, is it Metallica's best album? Absolutely not. It's not even close, but it's just a good, solid, almost easy listening hard rock album. And it's an album, you know, sometimes when I don't know what else to listen to, I can just pop this on and still really enjoy it. So yes, I don't understand the hate for this album. Certainly not as bad as everyone says it is. And there are a couple of really awesome songs on this, in my opinion. So there you go. So my hot take is that I like Metallica's Reload. Okay, and coming up to the 5th hot take. Let's get this done. So now talking about my favorite black metal band of all time, but I have a hot take about them. So this is Marduk with Opus Nocturne, and my hot take is, don't worry, I do like this album, I like it a lot, but my hot take is it's not in my top 5 Marduk albums. So again, I've heard a lot of people over the years say that this is their absolute favorite Marduk album of all time, and I do understand why. There's a lot to like about this album. For me, I don't dislike it at all. I just think there are albums that are better, or albums that, in my opinion, I just enjoy more. So, yeah, I love the production. You know, the whispered, harsh vocals in this. The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic. It's very cold, and they do have some really good songs. But I do find that just in comparison to other albums, this one doesn't have, in terms of the early albums, not quite as many standout tracks. And yeah, so when I say they're not standout tracks, I'm not saying they're bad, but they just don't grab me as much. And like the really popular song from this album is Materialized in Stone. For me, I've always found that song, again, not that interesting, to be honest. Having said that, there are some brilliant songs like Soul for Souls, for example, From the Subterranean Throne, Profound, Opus Nocturne, The Sun Has Failed. Some brilliant songs. So like I said, it's not a bad album by any means. It's just not in my top 5. Like as for my top 5 Marduk albums, you'll have to wait because I'm going to do a ranking soon. But everyone knows my number 1 Marduk album is Those of the Unlight. This album, it just doesn't make the top 5 for me, but it would definitely be in the top 10 out of their 18 albums, for sure. Like I said, I like this album, I respect it a lot, I do enjoy listening to it. There are just other albums that I like more than this. So that's my next hot take. Opus Nocturne is not in my top 5 Marduk albums. Okay, and one last hot take for you. And again, I'll just reiterate, this is my opinion. So if you really like these bands, more power to you. I like these bands too, except I just think they are massively overrated, in my opinion. Massively overhyped. And they are Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue. So sorry everyone. Yeah, like I said, I am a fan. Like Guns N' Roses, this album, Appetite for Destruction, the debut, is absolutely brilliant. It's, as Cavernous Carnage said, it's bitchin'. It's awesome. It's 10 out of 10. Just so much dirt and swagger and that in the gutter feeling of, you know, sleazy hard rock. Absolutely fantastic. There's no bad songs on this. But with Guns N' Roses, I just have to say, after this album, I completely lost interest. As I've mentioned, Lies had a few good songs, but it was, you know, like Sick Boy says in Trainspotting, it's good, but it's not great, is it? You know, like, so that's what I think. So, like, bits and pieces of Lies I like, and then after that, the Illusion albums, Chinese Democracy, no, I'm not interested at all. So, in my opinion, this is the only really good album they've done. Of course, they're really talented musicians, like Slash is a great guitarist and everything, but it's about how do you enjoy the songs? How do you feel when you listen to them? For me, it's only this album. And I always hear people getting so hyped and pumped up over Guns N' Roses, and that's great, but just for me, I don't get all that excited, to be honest. And the same with Motley Crue. Like, again, I obviously like the band because I own the albums, but I just think that the best albums were the first 5, you know, from Too Fast to Love until Dr. Feelgood. There are bits and pieces after that, which I do like, but even in relation to the first 5 albums, you know, like, nothing to do with the band's current terrible performances and lip syncing and all of that stuff, and not very good new material, but just in general, I even find, like, yes, I really like the first 5 albums, but the way people just like glorify this band and say they're absolutely brilliant and godlike, I just don't see it. Like, fun band, good band, but I just don't think they're, you know, as brilliant as everyone says they is. But I know people might say, how's your band going? Yes, I don't have one, but just because I don't play in a band doesn't mean I'm not entitled to an opinion about music. So yeah, that's my next hot take. And I know Heath from Attack from Down Under also shared this. Like, he mentioned that he finds these 2 bands massively overrated, so I'm not the only one. However, he did say Kiss is also a massively overrated band, and I disagree with that, obviously. Not because I'm biased, because they're my favorite band, but I actually think Kiss, even though they've sold tens of millions of albums worldwide, I still think they're underrated. Like, a lot of people, they're another band that everyone just loves to hate, almost as an unwritten rule. But I think if people really delve deeply into the Kiss discography and listen to the more obscure stuff, they might like Kiss. But anyway, that's another topic. But yeah, that's my final hot take. I just find these 2 bands, they're good, definitely, but massively overrated in my opinion. All right, that's it, guys. So hopefully you managed to get through this video without, you know, cursing or spitting or breaking a window or something. Be nice in the comments, please. I'll just reiterate once again, these are my opinions, and that's why they're called hot takes, because they're unpopular. So remember, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You can think what you like, that's fine, but just try to be nice about it if possible. So yes, hope you enjoyed the video, guys, or hope it provoked you, whatever your reaction may be, but hope you found it entertaining anyway. Let's get some discussion going in the comments, but let's try and keep it civil, please. And remember, it would be boring if we were all the same. So yeah, Kim, once again, congratulations on reaching 1,000 subscribers. It's really well deserved, and I'm sure your channel will continue to grow fast, and thanks for putting on this contest. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to be back for a while, but I've done quite a lot of videos recently, so you probably need a break from me anyway, but I will be back again in a couple of weeks for the next one. So in the meantime, take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.